Hello everyone, welcome back to practice with LSI. We are finally ready to go, and FP3 is here. And interestingly, just for the delay, and I think we're back again. There you go. That was a bit weird. I don't know what was heard and what wasn't heard, but as I was saying, we've had a few drivers who are still currently sat in the pit lane. They're not doing anything, they're just relaxing. So a strange one. I didn't expect that, especially after yesterday. A lot of errors, a lot of issues with grip from quite a few drivers. No one was really finding much confidence, except from a few. And now they're proceeding to not go out onto the track. So yeah, I am a little bit confused at this one. But I guess they know what they're doing, so they can make that call. We're just going to do some audio checks, and then we'll be back in a few moments. And then we're back. Lovely stuff. Still, no one out on track. And now I think what the plan is for a few teams to wait for other cars to go out on track and clear the dust away, and then they can do some running. Everybody's got exactly the same idea, and now the track is just not getting cleaned at all. So some teams are going to have to pull the short straw and just take the leap and go for it. Let's call up into who's out first, and it's probably best that they do go out as early as they can, as they have been struggling this weekend so far. They do need to get ahead when they can. They had 2 spins at turn 2 yesterday, in I think it was the same session, and the first one just a very lazy spin. The second one looked like they were pushing the limits a little bit more than before, and that's quite possibly what it was. So what news have we had overnight? Well, as far as I am aware, we found out that one of the FIA stewards has been suspended and will be replaced. So there could be something going on there with the stewards. I think it should be all good. I don't think we're going to have any problems this weekend. It is for the best interest of the sport. It's just whether that will affect things as normal running, if we get differences in penalties or not. I don't know. It might be a great situation. We'll see how it goes, and everything will go back to normal in Austria anyway. But of course, stewards, incidents, penalties, Max Verstappen's going to have to try and stay away from them, and they will have been instructed by the team to avoid an incident at all costs to make sure they don't get themselves an extra penalty point and receive a race ban for the Austrian Grand Prix, Red Bull's home circuit. Somebody who did get a penalty though yesterday was Oscar Piastri, who was fined €100 for speeding in the pit lane by 0.3 kilometers per hour, I think it was, maybe miles per hour. And yeah, that's pretty harsh. But it is what it is, and for an F1 driver, €100 isn't that much, is it? They don't want to be fined, but if it is to happen, then they're probably not going to worry about it too much. They'll just take the slap on the wrist and carry on their merry way. A few cars now coming out on track. Both Aston Martins have left the garage to come out onto the circuit. Lance Stroll, who basically had no running earlier on in yesterday's session. They had FP1 but FP2 crashing in the early minutes. No red flag was called. It was just a safety car as they pulled their car off at turn 10, and that was it for them. They were all sorted. For the rest of the session, the team didn't want them to drive it all the way back to the pit lane, although Lance felt that they could do so. They didn't want to get a penalty from the stewards for dangerously driving the car across the circuit whilst it was damaged. Alonso, I think, finished the day in P5 for FP2, so very, very competitive practice 2 session for the Spaniard. Yeah, P5, 0.335 seconds away from the top time of George Russell, who was the pole sitter here last year, and they set a lap that was only 1.5 tenths just under from their pole time last year. So we're looking to try and go a bit quicker today, and then we're about to destroy the pole time a little bit later on, I'm sure, in the session for qualifying. I want to double check the weather for Montreal because we did check it yesterday and it seemed to be that there wasn't going to be any rain. We do now double check it and it looks like there is going to be no rain at all. Sunday, 0% chance. It's only when we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday where we're expecting to see some rain. Tuesday expecting to see a little bit of rain, and Wednesday and Thursday thunderstorms. So a big lucky point there for the drivers that like it to be a dry circuit. I think if you see thunderstorms in a Formula 1 weekend, you're probably not going to get any running at all. So that's probably for the best, really. Some drivers do like the rain, but not everyone. And it definitely does make it quite difficult to overtake on track sometimes. Having a quick look at the vote that we've got right now. 8 votes 22 minutes ago. Lando Norris has got a 12% chance of going fastest. Piastri 12%. George Russell, well, not George Russell, comment in the chat. That's, I guess, Carlos Sainz maybe. And then Verstappen taking 62%. They did go fastest, and I think it was FP1. It was FP1 because George Russell went fastest. In FP2, it was actually Max Verstappen who went 9th fastest in FP2. So struggling with brake problems in both sessions, going quickly in the first, not quite finding the same performance in the second in the end. Yuki Tsunoda down in P15, so position-wise not so far away from his teammate, but still about 4-ish tenths away. 3 tenths away from his teammate. So better than before, but still not easy. Practice 3 last year in Canada saw a 12.5 be the fastest time by Lewis Hamilton. That's something that we'll be looking out for. I just wanted to have a look at the Constructors' Championship or the team standings. And we can see that, of course, McLaren are leading the way. Ferrari have managed to make that jump to P2. After 2 weekends, or 3 weekends in a row where Mercedes have had some form of powertrain issue. And that Ferrari, although didn't get much running from Charles Leclerc at all yesterday, is still looking quick regardless, as you see them go to the top of the times as we speak. Mercedes P3, and then it is Red Bull, despite Max Verstappen having the wins, whereas Ferrari only a sprint win and Mercedes no win at the moment. They are in P4. Williams having a fairly strong season so far, currently sat in P5. And then it's Racing Bulls with 28 points, a fair way behind Williams, but still competitive. Cars close together, where that race car for the American team seems to be the better side compared to the qualifying car. And then it's Sauber, who scored massive points last weekend. And despite Fernando Alonso finally scoring points for the first time, no Lance Stroll running in that race. And Nico Hülkenberg getting a great P5 ends up jumping ahead, although on equal points, to 8th place in the championship. And it's Renault, Alpine Renault, who are 11 points in the championship right now, so 5 points behind Aston Martin. When you think of Aston Martin, you don't really think of them to be P9 in the championship. You think they're kind of more about P7, P6 maybe, because they've had some pace, but they've just never really quite got it to work in the race. And yeah, they're losing out a lot because of that, unfortunately. More blocking seems to be happening once again. Practice shows a lot of drivers getting in the way of each other. Alonso moves out the way of Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc comes into the final chicane to cross the line and complete another lap, going purple in the middle sector on the fresh medium tyres. Fairly fresh medium tyres to the top of the times, 3/10 ahead of Pierre Gasly on the soft tyre. That medium continues to be very quick. The C6, C5 and C4 allocation that we're running this weekend was first seen, I think, this year in Imola, and it was a big problem. Aston Martin qualified on the medium tyres. We then saw it in Monaco the weekend after, and still there were a few more struggles, with Aston Martin once again being the team that qualified on that medium and did very well with it. So are we going to see some more medium tyre qualifying laps be set? I don't know. I'm sure as many teams as possible are going to try and do everything they can to make that soft tyre work, to utilise the performance. Because if you can do that, you get yourself a brilliant position on the grid. It's just whether you want to try and go for something a little bit safer or not. And I can't believe I'm saying that about qualifying, but it is what it is. So Noda having a moment in the hairpin, I believe, or is it the final chicane possibly? We did see a few problems from a few drivers yesterday with that final chicane. Just finding understeer in the second turn off the two. And if you find understeer there, you go into the barrier. That's what we did see from, or during, the F1 Academy race. Not entirely sure who it was, but the Wall of Champions was struck. And that car was out of the race, hopefully. We don't have that in Formula 1. Currently, Fernando Alonso tops the times as Lance Stroll's in P2 on the soft tyres each. Behrman, Ocon in P3 and 4. Bortoleto in P5. Leclerc, despite going quicker, once again has dropped back down. They will cross the line and we'll see where they end up. They do go to the top of the times again. They don't go purple, but they do go purple in the final sector. Purple overall, 2 tenths ahead. Now it's Alonso P2, Stroll, Behrman, Ocon, Bortoleto, Tsunoda, Gasly, Colapinto and Hulkenberg being the last of the runners, although Hamilton's just set a lap time, but it's way off the pace as they are getting bled into the session slowly. 42 minutes on the clock, and still a load of cars haven't come out onto the track yet. That's both Williams, that's Verstappen, that's Russell. The other cars have come out onto the track or are out on track. We've got Russell who leaves the pit lane now. Piastri just goes to P4. Norris is starting a lap right here, as you can see them go for the first sector. It's then Hadjar and Antonelli who have gone out at some point, but they've immediately come back in. They haven't set a time lap on that hard tyre they were running earlier on. Lawson is out on track now to try and give it a go. So still a lot of chilled out teams, a lot of chilled out drivers, not really running much at all. Whether that's intentional or if there's a few issues here and there, I don't know. That is a 20.3 for Alonso in the first sector. The middle sector not so competitive, and it looks like they've slowed off at the final sector, so they won't improve on their overall lap time. As Fernando Alonso, I think, finding the runoff at the final chicane, I believe. Complaining about rear grip. DRS disabled in zone 3, as we've got a yellow. But no, it's gone. Alrighty, so that was a yellow for Oscar Piastri, who spun earlier on. And Piastri's just then gone on a quick lap, but ended up having to back off in the final sector as they, I think, tapped the Wall of Champions on the exit. So suddenly slowed down and didn't complete that lap in the end. They did go green in the first and middle sector, but they don't go any further than that. Lando Norris has beaten their teammate lap-wise, but I think Piastri might have had an opportunity to go a little bit quicker. For now, they'll stay where they are, but it's Hamilton purple in the middle sector on the same tyre as Piastri. Piastri wanting the mechanics, or the engineers, sorry, to check if the suspension is all good or not. And .38 minutes on the clock. Hamilton goes to P3 on the medium tyre now. Lando Norris is going to begin another lap and possibly go quickly once again. We've seen some hard tyre running, some medium, some soft, a big mix. We've also seen no Williams cars out. We see a red flag. Trying to figure out why we've got a red flag. The Hulkenberg has got very close to the wall, but don't think that's the reason. So maybe the red flag is for the damage on Hulkenberg's car. So there's debris out on track and all the cars having to go back in. So hopefully this isn't a long red flag, as the damage should be easily cleared. We see a few cars jump straight into the pit lane and they'll sit in front of their pit box, get their tyres changed and then go out immediately, as they're hoping that they can go out pretty quickly once again. So far, McLaren not looking as strong as they would have probably hoped, to be honest. And, well, Verstappen definitely not either. No running for them. No time lapse still for Antonelli or Russell, although they have done a couple. Verstappen, Albon and Sainz all in the pit lane at the moment. And with the red flag, they've now got even less time to have a go. So I reckon that's a bit of a wake-up call and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to get in the car. That being said, if the cars have been in the pit lane for this long, then they aren't not worried. They aren't not going to go out. It's just something must be wrong with their situation at the moment. So we'll try and figure that one out after the session. And then when we're ready to go for qualifying a little bit later on. But we've got 34 minutes on the clock as it goes down. even though the red flag, we continue to let the timer go. And we'll see a resumption in about a minute's time. A timely manner. All the cars will now make it to the pit lane exit and wait for the green flag. Okay, so no, Oscar Piastri actually, I think that might have been where the debris was. Hitting the wall a little bit harder than I thought. And ending up paying the price, so they will have to sit out for a part of the session. See Russell be the first one to leave the pit. George Russell, straight out of the box, putting on some quick sectors relative to their teammate. First lap that they're going to try and do now time. They have been out on track, but no time lap so far. Sainz, Albon and Verstappen immediately out after that red flag and onto track before the halfway mark of the session. Russell purple in that middle sector, 22.962 out the final corner. What's it going to be for the Brit who went fastest in FP2 yesterday? A circuit that they seem to love. They go to P4 behind Hamilton, margins behind, that's for sure. 3/10 away from Charles Leclerc. And that Ferrari is still very quick. The new P2 in the championship team, despite having less running from the Monegasque, and after Charles Leclerc said he's sorry, it was a very silly crash to have, they have still managed to make up for it and are pushing. They did crash when they were on top of the times, so that just shows how competitive the Ferraris seem to be relative to previous weekends. Will Hamilton be able to follow the more, well, not experienced, but experienced at Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc, who's been there since 2019? Lando Norris up to P2, recently setting that lap time as they get into the 12-second margin. The one of only two cars to get into that 12-second margin, with Charles Leclerc in a 12.843 as their top time. Albon, first lap, 14th in the end, and splitting in between Lawson and Antonelli. Verstappen up to P8, though, just ahead of Carlos Sainz. So it all cars have now set lap times, and the more recent ones have improved. Hadjar to P6 of a brilliant lap there. Bortoletto Lawson are coming up very soon. It's Bortoletto who's going a little bit quicker on a quicker lap. They are improving. They've had some pretty tough times recently, all over the place on track on occasion, and finding a little bit sketchy sometimes. They managed to keep it out of the wall yesterday, but not without having a few troubles with, I think it was Carlos Sainz. They said Alex Albon yesterday, but I think it was Carlos Sainz who they were having that little bit of a scuffle with, or disagreement on the circuit. Nothing more happened than some slowing down and recouping. Albon struggling with a few setup changes, complaining how every time he drives the car, it feels different. Going off at turn 8 and 9, cutting the grass and rejoining the circuit, as we saw a few cars do yesterday, including Lando Norris, who did that as well. Wasn't investigated for it, but I think he was investigated for turn 2, cutting that corner and not following the race director's instructions. Nothing happened in the end, but they were definitely aware of the situation and not to do it again. George Russell, once again, go quickly. Norris has recently gone purple, but it's Russell who's purple in that middle sector. And looking very quick, should take that top spot, and they do so. Not actually faster in that final sector. Not too far away in the first, but a little bit quicker in the middle, which is making the difference. And that is why George Russell has managed to make it to P1. More brake issues for Max Verstappen as they continue to struggle. We'll go through the running once again as we see 23 minutes on the clock now. It's George Russell who's just gone fastest, followed by Lando Norris, who's recently gone pretty quickly as well. Half a second back from George Russell's time is Charles Leclerc, who still looks quick themselves, but we'll finally get to see what their pace is going to be like. Verstappen in P4, as they've set some laps in recent times after being sat in the pit lane for a while. They haven't gone in the pits since. It's then also a purple first sector there for them. It's Alex Albon who just goes up to P5 as we speak. It's Hadjar, Alonso, Antonelli, Hamilton, Berman in P10, and it's Carlos Sainz in P11. Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Gasly and Oscar Piastri in P15. Then it's Esteban Ocon in P16 with Colapinto, Bortoleto, Sonoda and Hulkenberg following on. Scoring a decent amount of points was Hulkenberg, and having some good pace was Sauber. But for now, they don't seem to be really gelling as well with the Canadian Grand Prix circuit. Maybe they're not looking for gel, but they're looking for maple syrup to get themselves stuck to the circuit a little bit more. Well, sticking to the circuit, it's realistically about mechanical grip. The bumpy, very, very bumpy circuit is quite easy to skip over with the tyres, and if you don't have a nice planted car beneath you, you can't do much about it. Also with the dust and the dirt on the circuit, that also makes things quite complicated. Berman and Alonso have had a moment. It's a little bit of blocking, I think. It is. As Alonso was about to go to the racing line, but almost ended up colliding with Oliver Berman. Oliver Berman then immediately goes into the pit lane, as they were realistically left enough space, but they were just a little bit shook, a little bit worried, and they just moved out the way. That's a yellow there on track. That's into the second corner. Spinning as Colapinto has done at turn 2. And they rotate that car and make sure they're going once again in the correct direction. They had no cars behind them, so they didn't need to worry about getting out the way of anybody else. Other than maybe their teammate, I think they spun ahead of them just for a moment ago, but Liam Lawson is through nice and cleanly. George Russell continuing to go quickly. Purple in the first 2 sectors now on the not fully fresh but fairly old soft tyres that they've started their current stint with, and they go into P1 by a couple of tenths. Hamilton has beaten Lando Norris's time, and they are nice and close, but it's Piastri to P5. That McLaren is not so quick, is it? Yep, that's Hadjar having exactly the same issue as Colapinto had with their first spin yesterday. Very easy to get wrong, and very hard to get right. Ten votes on the board in the chat right now. Lando Norris expected to go fastest by 20% of you, then Piastri 10%. 20% for somebody else. It's Verstappen still on 50%, getting 5 of the 10 votes. And we're looking at that right now. It's not that bad of a guess, but maybe the Ferraris and the Mercedes are the ones that we should be looking at for pole position. George Russell, Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, then Max Verstappen. Are the McLarens even in the question here for qualifying? Well, yeah, of course they are. But they're not just going to be as competitive as they have been in the past. could we see a first victory or a Grand Prix victory from either Mercedes or Ferrari? That would be impressive, wouldn't it? We've seen a sprint race pole position from Kimi Antonelli and a sprint race pole position and a win for Lewis Hamilton in China, Antonelli in Miami. But no Grand Prix victory or Grand Prix pole for either Ferrari or Mercedes. Antonelli not having the best of times with their Mercedes so far relative to their teammate. 1.1 seconds away. Hulkenberg though 3.1 seconds away, having to get a bit of wing repairs done as they had their moment earlier on in the session. Alex Albon and Piastri improving in the sectors now. Behrman also going fairly quickly at the moment. And we'll see what the Brit can do as they come out the final hairpin. Ocon as well, improving, but nowhere near his teammates in that first sector. Piastri not going quicker in the middle sector, but going fairly quickly regardless. Behrman to P6, and then we will see Alex Albon cross the line next up, who is on also that improvement lap. They go just ahead of Oliver Behrman. A couple of tenths behind Oscar Piastri, who will then cross the line shortly after. Then it's Sainz as well. Piastri across the line, and that's going to be not an improvement, but very close to it. Very, very close to it. It's Esteban Ocon who improves next as Carlos Sainz just crosses the line and will not go for a fast sector. There you go, Esteban Ocon to P13, away back from his teammate though. 1.1 seconds versus 8 tenths away from the pole time. That is a huge gap right now. Lawson improves up to P15, still behind his teammate though, but a few positions up. We've got Bortoleto and Carlos Sainz now going for improvement laps here. Very close to the wall is Bortoleto, having a bit of understeer, getting the rotation in at least. And they're improving to P15 ahead of Lawson to push them down. And it is now Carlos Sainz who is going to come out of the hairpin and ready to go to the final chicane to show us what they can do. No further action for Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon's impeding moment. Very tidy out the final chicane it is for Carlos Sainz, and it's a P6. Just ahead of their teammate, 2 tenths ahead of their teammate, and exactly the same lap time as Oscar Piastri. Lewis Hamilton looking so quick, looking quick at the moment. Purple in the first sector. The circuit that they took their first ever victory at. They've also then taken 7 victories in their career at the circuit. Not the most in their career at one circuit, but definitely up there. And they are considered to be one of the best around here. And Ferrari also have that record of the most wins as well. So currently they do have a winning recipe. Can they convert it? Usually I'd say no, but maybe if they can keep the setup the way it is, they might have that confidence to get the job done. Final chicane is done, DRS is open, and across the line for Lewis. It's not going to be ahead of Russell. A tenth off in the end. The final sector is not purple, but it is Lando Norris purple in that middle sector. Very, very close to Lewis Hamilton in the first, but that middle sector is absolutely mighty compared to the Brit. And the other Brit then goes to P1. It is a Brit 1, 2, 3 right now, but it's Lando Norris who takes that top spot in the end. 10th ahead, just under a tenth ahead from Hamilton's final sector time. That's what's made a big difference there, and a tenth and a half ahead of Russell now. Russell currently out on track at the moment, but not improving, not going for fast laps just yet, or maybe is going for a fast lap now as they are on those fresh, soft tyres, you can see. A lot of cars doing their qualifying runs here with 12 minutes on the clock. This is where we like to see things go fast, but it seems as if Russell's doing a second run to warm up these tyres. Oh, a big hit with the wall there for Oliver Behrman at the Wall of Champions. He thinks that the car is fine, although it really doesn't look like it should be. That wall hit was absolutely huge from Oliver Behrman there. They're saying that the car is a bit of a nightmare to drive at the moment as they go P10 in the timing order. But very surprised right now that there isn't more of an issue here. That's very, very lucky. Hulkenberg is back out on track since their issues earlier on, and they're on those fresh soft tyres. Lots of cars out on some fairly new soft tyres right now. Not many people improving just at this point, but Lance Stroll is doing so, and we'll see them cross the line. There's Lance Stroll to P12 just behind their teammate. And there's Liam Lawson. But looking at the next cars to improve. Antonelli has since gone P9 actually, so they've definitely put the pace in a little bit better than before. Verstappen's improving. They come into the final hairpin and leave it. But it's a few cars doing some improvements. Albon, we've got Hulkenberg who's just gone to P16. We've got Lawson who is improving now as they start a lap. Verstappen up to the line. What's it going to be for the Dutchman? And they do stay P4, but they improve their lap time a little bit closer to the cars ahead. 3 tenths ahead of Piastri, but 1.5 tenths away from Hamilton. That McLaren maybe has got its issues sorted and there aren't so many problems as we maybe thought. We were thinking that it could be possible for a few drivers to end up beating the McLarens, but I guess maybe that's not the case and we could see McLaren run business as usual. Round 10 of the championship here in Montreal. 4 of those wins have gone to Oscar Piastri, the most of anyone. Other than that, it's been shared between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Is that correct? I want to double check if that is correct stats or if I'm looking at things wrong here. Max Verstappen taking victory in Japan and Imola. Lando Norris taking victory in Australia and Monaco. But other than that, it's Oscar Piastri who's taking victory everywhere else. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins, not 4 wins for their name in the championship. They're now looking to try and make it 6 if they can, which is a brilliant achievement in itself, let alone in one season. They went for the domination last weekend with fastest lap pole position and the race victory. Lando Norris did the same in Imola. It was a little bit of a different story in... sorry, that was Monaco for Lando Norris. Imola, a different story where Oscar Piastri took pole, but it was fastest lap for Max Verstappen and the win. And then it was all a mix in Miami with pole position going to Verstappen, Lando Norris taking the fastest lap and Oscar Piastri taking the victory. That was exactly the same as the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And then it goes back to Oscar Piastri domination in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc improves, but it's Pierre Gasly complaining about traffic. Lewis Hamilton also getting blocked in the later part of the circuit. It is a street circuit, it's a tight circuit, and the teams do have to make sure that they let their drivers know if they've got a car approaching them quickly or not. Seems to be maybe not the case so much. Although we do always seem to find that qualifying and the race doesn't see so many blockages, at least from the view of the viewer. Once Stroll improves in the middle sector, in the final sector, what will they do? Not improve, and they will stay where they are. Now, a lot of cars have just done their runs on that soft tyre, so that's going to be the fastest times out of the way. And now we're expecting a few cars to maybe go into the pit lane and put some different tyres on, ready to go for their practice starts a little bit later on. Maybe a few teams will do something else. A lot of teams will probably just stay out until the end, as we've only got 5 minutes on the clock now. As it stands, we do have a few drivers still improving though. We've got Lawson pushing, we've got Russell who is pushing a little bit, Green in that middle sector, but the first sector nowhere near the fastest, and they don't actually get their personal best either. At the final corner for George Russell, and they will be in the 12 mark, very close to the 11s, but they will stay where they are and they will not be able to go any quicker. So looking at qualifying this time last year, actually practice 3 first, what we saw was Oscar Piastri go 12.387. We then saw pole position be no, sorry, that's Spain. Completely messed that one up. It was a 12.549. Then we saw in qualifying a 12.0 be the pole time. So if you were Norris or Russell, you'd have had pole position here last time around. But the circuit was quicker in the Q2 session, once again set by George Russell. That was an 11.742. So currently, Lando Norris almost has that record from last year, and we're looking to try and beat that if we can when it comes to qualifying a little bit later on. And considering FP3 is usually slower than qualifying, we should definitely be able to reach that with the conditions not likely to change from now until the qualifying session a little bit later on. There should be no rain here in Montreal. If there is, then the weatherman has been lying to us. Weather lady, whatever they want to be. That is Lando Norris going fastest. So my comments earlier on saying that we're probably not going to see any more fast runs be done is completely invalid, as we do see drivers usually follow exactly what I say that they're not going to do. But it's Lando Norris who goes slower in the middle sector, and I think that might be their lap done. Tsunoda has got an investigation for a red flag infringement. A red flag infringement, as it goes with Oliver Behrman in Monaco, meant that you got a grid penalty and I think penalty points as well. So Yuki Tsunoda not in the best position for that one. It's not an easy allegation to bypass. There's some qualifying battles going on with Bortoleto and Behrman, as Behrman tried to stay in the car to get their final run done, but they were knocked out after they got their time deleted and started last. Bortoleto eventually got into Q2, but maybe that wasn't so fair, even though it was the call that was made in the end. George Russell in the pit lane with 2 minutes to go. We're expecting to see them come out in these final stages. A few cars in the pit lane at the moment, but the majority are out on the circuit, making it look quite busy at this stage, and blocking could definitely still be an issue. We've got Antonelli improving as they come to finish their lap, but they've got some cars in front of them. Tsunoda moves out the way, they'll get a tow from Albon in the distance, and they'll cross the line and they'll go to P7 ahead of Piastri, very close to Leclerc. Considering everything right now, it being practice 3 and all the cars dialing it up a little bit more, Alonso being in P5 is a pretty good effort. Piastri not improving in that middle sector, but they are going quickly in the first. Maybe going to beat Antonelli, if they had a mighty final sector, that is. It's purple for Leclerc. There is Piastri across the line, and they don't actually improve. Again, they just get very close to their personal best. Once again for Oscar Piastri, staying P8 for now. Lando Norris, their teammate, is the one who is leading at the moment. The championship leader not having the best of times around this circuit so far this weekend, and they weren't in contention for the victory here last time around in 2024. That was Lando Norris and George Russell with Max Verstappen in the mix. I want to say there was a Ferrari involved as well, or if it was Hamilton, but I can't quite remember. I want to double check what the race result was from last Canadian Grand Prix, and it was Hamilton in P4, so I think, yeah, it was the other Mercedes who was involved in the battle, but it was Oscar Piastri P5, 10 seconds back from the leader in the end. Charles Leclerc improves massively. They got that purple first sector, as we mentioned earlier on. We've got a few seconds to go of the session left. They went green in the middle and final. Complaining about a few too many mistakes with the lap, but showing phenomenal pace. Shows that maybe the Ferraris could compete for victory. They missed out in Monaco. A brilliant qualifying from Charles Leclerc. Didn't quite go the way they wanted it to in the end, as Lando Norris pipped them to it and then converted it into victory. They're now going to try and give it a go this weekend instead at a circuit that Ferrari have the most success at. Not by too much. McLaren and Williams are following closely. Lando Norris finishes the session, as they are the first car to take the flag. We watch a few more cars take the flag. We've got Yuki Tsunoda improving. We've got Colapinto improving. Verstappen improving. A 12.0, almost to the 11-second margin, but not quite there. That will be their last attempt at it until they get into qualifying later on. Just shy of their pole effort last year that they just missed out on. Very close with Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton a tenth away from George Russell, and it's Leclerc then Norris. Tsunoda finishes the session in last place by 4 tenths behind P19, Gabriel Bortoleto. Really frustrating stuff there. And that is 1.5 seconds away from their teammate in equal machinery. That's absolutely brutal. All the cars have crossed the pit lane, or crossed the line that's set from Alonso, who's gone into the pit lane. It's Lando Norris who tops the times with an 11.799. We are definitely getting up to pace now, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, ready for qualifying a little bit later on in a few hours. It's Charles Leclerc in P2 who sets that recent fast lap. Then we've got George Russell who's looking strong. Hamilton as well in P4. Then we've got Verstappen who's trying to find his way through these problems with the brakes in P5. Alonso, P6. Antonelli finding some pace towards the final stage of the session as well after struggling earlier on. Antonelli in P7, that is. Just to reiterate, then we've got Piastri, who is having some problems in P8. And then we've got Carlos Sainz, followed by Albon in P9 and 10. Then we've got Hajar, Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, and Oliver Bowman in P15, followed by their teammate Esteban Ocon and Colapinto in P17, ahead of both of the Saubers, Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, with Yuki Tsunoda having their problems in P20. A big mix-up, and then a lot of cars there towards the end setting their fast laps, ready for qualifying to get dialed in. And we saw some exciting runs be done at the very end. So that was a practice worthwhile, wasn't it? Well, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We will be back later on to see you for qualifying, and we'll see who can take that pole position away. Who's going to get it? Is it going to be McLaren? Is it going to be Red Bull? Is it going to be Mercedes or Ferrari? It could be anyone at this point, it looks like. I can't wait, and I hope you can't either. We'll see you in a few hours' time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.